Hi everybody, we are the Intimate Partner Violence Assessment and Prevention Group. My name is Jamie Swager.
I'm Emily Renda.
And I'm Emma Pikowski.
And just to give you a quick overview of where we're going with our presentation, we're going to start with an overview of what intimate partner violence is and what we were trying to accomplish with our project, then go into a questionnaire that we developed in order to gain information about intimate partner violence in a college-based setting. Also, we're going to go into a summary of those results and then talk about the program that was developed from the results that we got.
Oh, I clicked the wrong one.
Oh,
sorry, guys.
Okay, there we go. Awesome. Okay, so intimate partner violence and our attempt at this project is meant to address the problem of gender-based violence in college students. 1 out of 3 women are affected by domestic violence in the ages between like 18 and 22, and we want to look at the behaviors that kind of led to intimate partner violence. So intimate partner violence, as you can see up here, is defined as basically any kind of physical, sexual threats or emotional, psychological, I guess like intimidation that's done between 2 partners who are together or married or any sort of like couple. It's important because, again, like I said, it's high in the rates of college students, and these behaviors, when they're developed around the ages between 18 and 22, can lead into later relationships in life and also in marriage. So to kind of give you a better idea of what we're talking about, this is the power and control wheel. In the center is power and control, which is sort of the main focus of what a partner who is trying to gain abusive or use abusive and violent behaviors to establish and maintain control over their partner. What you see on the outside is ways that that partners can manipulate and gain control over their significant other. And on the outside you see physical and sexual violence, which is sort of like it's the border, because it's not something that always happens in cases. Sometimes it's a lot less intense than actual like physical violent acts. So in our study, we were looking more at this right side, which is intimidation, emotional abuse, which is like putting down your significant other, isolation, which is controlling what your partner does or being extremely jealous and causing that to change what your partner is doing, and also just making very light of the fact that you are abusing your partner. This is mostly because when we're looking at college students or people between the ages of 18 and 22, these ones on the left side don't necessarily apply, where people don't necessarily have children or can really cause economical abuse on their significant other. So real quick, we partnered with the Shelter for Help in Emergency, which is a community resources and also a domestic violence shelter for people who are abused. It also is available to help broaden the knowledge of resources that are available for people who experience intimate partner violence. We also partnered, her name got a little cut off at the bottom, but with Dr. Kaplan, who is the Director of Sexual and Domestic Violence at the Women's Center here at UVA. Let's see. All right, so the initial idea for our survey to help gather us information was to do a quantitative survey on intimate partner violence, and also to have face-to-face interviews with a variety of students. However, there are a lot of, but there are IRB considerations to make. IRB stands for the Institutional Review Board, which reviews and approves of studies that are done here at UVA. So when we were looking at the face-to-face interviews, there were a lot of considerations where it would be students interviewing students, which raises a lot of confidentiality issues. Also, the people conducting these interviews would need training in both just how to conduct a survey and also sensitivity, because we're dealing with very emotional issues. And we'd also need to consult with different counselors on these issues and have them available when doing these face-to-face interviews. So we ended up not doing that and focusing on our study, which actually got us a lot of useful information back. So I'm going to turn it over to Emma to tell you a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so when we were developing the study, we pulled from the CDC compendiums for intimate partner violence screening tools. So these are a bunch of different surveys. They all tend to focus on different things, whether it's psychological, emotional aspects, and things like that. And so we pulled individual questions from them. We didn't take any survey as a whole. This was a little bit of a disadvantage because we were unable to compare our results to a whole survey, but it allowed us to choose the questions that were most appropriate for UVA students and looking at the age group that we were interested in. We also wrote some of our own questions and reworded questions to include things like Facebook, checking Facebook and text messages and things like that. They're very applicable to college students. We split our questionnaire into two sections, one about attitudes and one about incidents. So the attitude section had to do with things that you think are okay to do to a partner, or things that you think are okay for a partner to do to you. While the incidents section focused on things that have happened to you or things that you have done to a partner. We used a 4-part scale, so these things are never okay, these things are sometimes okay, these things are usually okay, or these things are always okay. And the reason that we chose to do a 4-part scale is because when we were developing the survey, we consulted with someone at the Gordy Center that told us you should always try and stick to even numbers to discourage respondents from picking a neutral stance and staying in the middle every time. And we decided SurveyMonkey was the best format for this. So this is the first page of our survey. This is one of the attitudes page. I believe it's the first page of the attitude section. And as you can see, a lot of our questions were things like, you believe it's okay to tell a partner that no one would love them like you do, things like that. So we sampled a sample size of 3,000 students, so about 1/5 of the UVA population. We sampled via email, and we got these email addresses from the Office of Institutional Assessment and Surveys. So we split it up equal by year and gender. Again, this was slightly a disadvantage. A lot of times you need to oversample males because they're less likely to respond. So in the end, we did have about a 60-40 split, female to male. Which was less representative of the UVA population. And in the end, we ended up with 1,178 responses. So this is the email that we sent out. We phrased it as a student project to kind of gain some camaraderie, to increase responses, and we incentivized it with a $2 donation to a charity of the respondent's choice to help increase responses. It was another method.
Okay, so kind of unlike a lot of other JPC projects, I guess you could say ours has fewer action shots. So a lot of what we really did, sure, just like don't touch the bottom. Gotcha. It's very sensitive. So a lot of kind of what we did was a lot of sitting in front of a computer, a lot of very tedious data cleaning, going through SPSS, making a lot of decisions about how we were going to treat the data, how we were going to respond to it, and what kind of results were most appropriate for the type of program we were looking to develop. So we can click through our action shots. This is SPSS. No cute children, didn't go anywhere fancy, just over to the Scholars Lab in Alderman. So just so you guys have an idea of what we do. You can keep clicking through. So first I want to talk just briefly about the types of data decisions that we made. So with SurveyMonkey, every respondent who opened the survey and then clicked, I consent to participate in this survey became what's called a case in our SPSS data. However, if they chose and they saw that first screen that we demonstrated earlier, they may have said, I'm not comfortable participating anymore. I've given consent, but I'm not comfortable. And so they closed the survey. So all of their responses were blank. So we had to go through and clean out all of those. Another decision we decided to make, kind of with the help of, we consulted a woman over at the nursing school. Her name was Catherine Long, and she helped us kind of make some of these data decisions. So we decided that if someone maybe completed an entire section, so say we had a respondent who made it through that first page of all attitude-related variables, but then decided that no more, I'm done. I saw the next part of the page, I don't want to keep doing this, not comfortable, I'm stopping. So the rest of the data were blank. The decision that we made was to delete those and not have those as just missing data. However, if a student didn't systematically non-respond, if they just kind of skipped certain items because they weren't comfortable with it, we left those in. So there are some missing data within our results, but it's not just kind of crippling in the sense that it would have been before we did some of this cleaning work. So moving forward, so what we did, I'm just going to show you a few of our results kind of to help you understand where the program went and what we were trying to achieve with the program. I know it's kind of a lot to throw at you up here, but a lot of what we want to point out is really just that, sorry, lost track. is that some of these were really interesting to us in terms of there were a high percentage of students who thought it was sometimes appropriate to engage in these behaviors. Something important to keep in mind is that when we developed this questionnaire, we were pulling from a lot of different compendiums, and we weren't keeping them all as a scale. We weren't ranking these as individually, like, this is inherently a very bad behavior, and we're looking to see who engages in it and who's a problem student. Each one of these behaviors could be a red flag. Each one of these things could be an issue for someone to be okay with engaging in, but it depends on how they're using it. So when I talk about the program in a few minutes, I'll explain how we kind of integrated that idea of there's a very large gray area between how someone's using something, how it's perceived, what the intention is. So things we noticed, just kind of to point them out, is that women and men were about equally likely to think it was okay to tell a partner that they were okay with spending time, or not okay with them spending time with someone of the opposite sex. But women were much more likely to think that it was okay for a partner to tell that to them. So, some of the questions that raised, what does that say about gender roles? What does that say about jealousy? The same thing could be said for the withholding affection variable, where slightly more women were willing to withhold affection. Is that the way that we're socialized? Like, is that kind of how we communicate in relationships? Just raising those questions. So we flip over to, we also had the incidents section. Tried to color code it a little bit better. We only have a minute left, so I'm going to skip through these, but basically about 30% lower in terms of attitudes when thinking it was something was sometimes acceptable to engage in really didn't happen at that same rate. It was about 30 to 40% lower on almost all of these, which were matching. So I keep clicking through. We found high correlations with if you thought it was okay for something, like to engage in something, it was much more likely that that actually happened to you. Keep clicking through because I really want to talk about our program. So we took a lot of inspiration from the Red Flag campaign, which is an initiative in Virginia. And really, they focus on the idea of a continuum. So the program that we developed is meant to be presented by the Shelter for Help in Emergency. We experienced a staff change while our project was going on. So unfortunately, we weren't able to implement it in the spring because the youth director that we were working with suddenly left and did not contact us. So that was a challenge that our project had to contend with, but we really are hoping to do it in the fall. It's a dialogue-based program where we present the type of data that we're talking about and give students a chance to respond. Unfortunately, that's all the time I have to talk about it, but thank you so much. We really hope it goes on in the future. And then there's Jefferson's face. So, thank you.